Welcome to the Nurture Network podcast, where motherhood meets transformation. I'm Jess Baldenhofer, certified parent coach, educator, and mom on a mission to help you move beyond overwhelm and create a deeper connection with your kids and yourself. Each episode is packed with real tools, relatable stories, and the support you deserve. Let's dive in and take another step toward the peaceful, fulfilling parenting journey you've been searching for. What if I told you that the way you were parented, whether you loved it, struggled with it, or never really questioned it, is still shaping how you show up for your child today? Maybe you've had one of those moments where words just came out of your mouth, words you swore you would never say. Maybe you've heard yourself sounding just like your mom or dad, even though you always said you'd do things differently. Or maybe you're so determined to break the cycle that you feel completely lost, not sure what different should actually look like. I get it because I've been there too. So many of the moms I work with come to me feeling frustrated, exhausted, and guilty because they don't want to parent the way they were raised, with fear, punishment, yelling, and threats. But at the same time, they feel stuck. Because when we decide we don't want to repeat the patterns we grew up with, we are automatically not necessarily given new ones. And if we don't have the tools, new strategies, or a clear vision of what we actually do want, then we end up defaulting to the only thing we know. But here's the thing. Parenting differently doesn't mean throwing everything out. It doesn't mean our parents were bad or that we should reject everything about our upbringing. In fact, many of us had childhoods that were filled with love, support, and wonderful memories. What this is really about is choosing to be intentional. It's about asking yourself, what do I want to carry forward? What do I want to do differently? What kind of relationship do I want with my child, not just now, but when they grow up? Because the truth is, breaking the cycle isn't just about stopping old patterns. It's about creating something new and something that's authentic to you. And this isn't just about our kids, it's about us too. Parenting is one of the biggest opportunities we'll ever have to reparent ourselves, to learn about ourselves, and to grow. When we recognize the patterns we've inherited, whether it's how we handle emotions, how we set boundaries, or how we deal with stress, we also get the chance to tend to our own needs, to acknowledge the parts of us that still need healing, to give ourselves what we may not have received as children so that we don't pass those same wounds down to our kids. And that's what we're diving in today. In this episode, we'll be talking about how to recognize and unlearn unhealthy patterns so we don't just parent on autopilot, how to navigate triggers and shift our mindset so we can respond instead of react, and how to create a parenting approach that feels authentic, one that works for you, your child, and your family. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about parenting perfectly. It's about parenting consciously. It's about stepping into the kind of parent we want to be, even when it's hard. It's about creating a relationship with our children that's built on trust, connection, and mutual respect. So if you've ever felt stuck between wanting to do things differently but not knowing exactly how, you're not alone, and this conversation is for you. One of the hardest parts about trying to parent differently than we were raised is that we don't always realize how much we carry into our parenting until we're already deep in it. We come into parenting with the best of intentions. We tell ourselves, I will never yell like my parents did. I will always listen. I will be patient. I will do things differently. And then one day we hear our own voice rising. We feel frustration boiling over. We react in a way that feels automatic, almost instinctual, only to realize later that it wasn't instinct at all. It was conditioning. Because whether we like it or not, we bring our past into our parenting, not just in the way we handle discipline, emotions, and boundaries, but in the deep hidden ways that our childhood still lives inside us. We don't just inherit our parents' behaviors, we also inherit the wounds, the coping mechanisms, the triggers, and the emotional imprints from how we were parented. And then we become parents ourselves. And suddenly our child isn't just a child. Their behavior, their reactions, their emotions, they start bringing up parts of ourselves that we didn't even know were there. If you've ever had a moment where your child's behavior sent you into a rage or made you feel deep sadness or triggered a wave of frustration that felt disproportionate to what was actually happening, there's a reason. Our children have a way of shining a spotlight on the parts of us that still need healing. They can press on wounds that haven't fully closed. They can awaken feelings we thought we had long since outgrown. For example, what if you grew up with a parent who was emotionally immature? Maybe they were unpredictable, overreacted. Maybe they made everything about their emotions and not yours. As a child, you had no choice but to learn how to navigate that. Maybe you learned to walk on eggshells. Maybe you learned to suppress your own feelings to keep the peace. And now, years later, you have a child of your own, a child who's still learning how to regulate their emotions, who might be loud, demanding, reactive, or intense. And suddenly, it's hard. It feels exhausting, frustrating, and even triggering in a way that doesn't make logical sense. But it does make sense because it's reminding you of your parent, of the helplessness you felt as a child when you were surrounded by big emotions that you couldn't control. And without even realizing it, you're responding to the child not as they are, but as if they were emotionally immature parent. This happens in so many ways. What if your child doesn't listen to you? For some parents, it's frustrating, but manageable. But if you grew up in a home where your voice didn't matter, where speaking up got you in trouble, or where no one took the time to really hear you, then your child not listening can feel deeply personal. It's not just that they ignored your request. It's that something inside of you is screaming, see, no one listens to me. No one cares what I have to say. And before you know it, you're not just responding to your child, you're reacting from an old wound. And that's why this work is so important. Because when we don't take the time to recognize these patterns, we don't just pass down behaviors, we pass down unresolved pain. So, another big one, as parents, we are so much more likely to take our children's behavior personally than we realize. When they whine, when they yell, when they ignore us or push back, we don't just see it as their behavior or maybe even telling us something about their needs. We see it as something happening to us. We think they don't respect us. They're doing this to push my buttons. Why don't they appreciate everything I do for them? Or we're also thinking, I'm such a bad parent that my child is behaving like this. And we react not from a place of calm leadership, but from our own sense of rejection, failure, or hurt, or fear. But here's the thing, children aren't misbehaving at us. They're just being children and figuring it out, and it's messy. They're learning, they're growing, their behaviors are still developing. They don't have the same impulse control or emotional regulation that we do as adults with fully formed brains. They aren't thinking, how can I make my parents' life harder today? They're just experiencing their emotions, and we happen to be in the room when it happens. And they can take stuff out on us for sure. But when we take their behavior personally, we react from our own wounds instead of responding to their needs. And that's when we start parenting from a place of reactivity rather than intention. So, how do we start breaking these cycles? How do we stop reacting from old wounds and start showing up as the parents we actually want to be? The first step is awareness. We can't change something we don't even see. And so much of this work is about recognizing, oh, this isn't actually about my child, it's about me. When we find ourselves reacting with frustration, anger, or overwhelm, we need to pause and ask, what is this bringing up for me? Where have I felt this before? Is this about my child or about something deeper? And that line of questioning with ourselves has to come from a place of compassion, not guilt and not shame and not criticism. And then we take a deep breath. We regulate ourselves because one of the most powerful things we can do for our children is to show them what it looks like to handle emotions in a healthy way. We want to show them that it's okay to have big feelings, but we don't have to explode. That boundaries can be set with calm confidence, not anger. That mistakes don't mean shame, they mean learning. And here's the biggest piece. When we do this work, We don't just change how we parent, we change how we experience parenting. We shift from constantly feeling like we're failing to realizing that this is a journey. We stop feeling like our child is against us and start seeing that they are with us. We start parenting with more confidence because we're no longer trying to avoid what we don't want. We are building something new. And that's how we begin to break the cycle. So, if all of this is true, if we bring our past into our parenting, if our children have the ability to trigger deep wounds, if we're often reacting to things that have nothing to do with the present moment, what do we do about it? How do we stop repeating patterns we don't want? How do we handle our triggers without letting them control us? And most importantly, how do we start parenting from a place that feels authentic to us instead of just reacting to what we don't want our parenting to be? This is where the work really begins. Because breaking the cycle isn't just about knowing what not to do, it's about intentionally creating something new. And that means we have to start with ourselves. One of the most powerful and life-changing realizations that we can have as parents is this: parenting is not just about raising our children, it's about healing ourselves. Every moment of frustration, every trigger, every overwhelming emotion is an invitation to look deeper, to notice where we still need care, attention, and healing. And when we take the time to do this work, something incredible happens. We stop reacting and start responding. We stop parenting out of fear and start parenting out of trust. When we stop looking for the right way to parent and start developing an intuitive, deeply personal approach that fits us and our children. Because for so many of us, we've spent years, decades even, living in reaction mode. We were told what to do, how to behave, and how to feel. We were conditioned to listen to authority, to follow the rules, to suppress our needs to fit into a system. And when we become parents, that programming doesn't just disappear. This is why so many of us feel so uncertain, disconnected, or even lost when we're trying to do things differently. We were never taught to listen to ourselves. We weren't shown how to trust our own instincts. We learned to value outside approval more than our own inner wisdom. But when we begin this work, when we start recognizing our triggers, healing old wounds, and parenting from a place of consciousness rather than reaction, something shifts. We start to hear our own voice again. We begin to trust our intuition. We realize that we don't have to parent the way our parents did, but we also don't have to blindly follow every new parenting trend, expert, or social media influencer. We get to create something entirely our own. When we do this work, parenting stops feeling like a constant struggle between what we were taught and what the world is telling us to do now. Instead of swinging from one extreme to the other, rejecting everything or feeling like we have to follow a perfect script, we start to operate from a place of inner clarity. We stop second guessing ourselves. We stop feeling like we have to justify our choices to others. We become more grounded, more confident, more at peace in our role as parents. Because the truth is, there's no one right way to parent. Your child is unique, you are unique, and the relationship you're building with them is something that has never existed before. And the more you do this work of understanding yourself, healing your own wounds, and learning to respond rather than react, the more you will trust yourself. You won't need someone else to tell you whether you're doing it right because you'll know, you'll feel it. So as we wrap up, I want you to really take this in. You are not failing because you struggle. You are not broken because you get triggered. You are not a bad parent because you don't always know what to do. You are a human being with your own history, your own emotions, your own inner world, and that doesn't just disappear because you became a parent. But the fact that you're here listening to this means you care. It means you're willing to do the work. It means you want something better, not just for your child, but for yourself. And that is powerful because parenting is not just about guiding our children. It's about becoming the kind of person we want them to learn from. It's about healing what needs healing so we don't pass down what we don't want them to carry. So as you move forward from here, I want you to remember this. You have the ability to change. You have the power to parent in a way that feels right for you. You have permission to listen to yourself, to trust yourself, to honor what feels true for you and for your child. The journey isn't easy, but it is worth it, and you don't have to do it alone. Thanks for listening to the Nurture Network. If this episode resonated with you, subscribe so you won't miss the next one. Share it with a fellow mom who might need it too. Until next time, remember that nurturing yourself is the first step in nurturing your family.